live and direct from my phone to your ears. Welcome to my voice notes. Hello and welcome, beautiful and illustrious people, to my voice notes. Live and rugged from London town, as I'm currently here to conduct a couple of interviews, namely the superstar musician that is Jamaica's finest, Chronix, and the superstar DJ and producer that is the Blessed Madonna, formerly known as the Black Madonna. But I'm also here to move things along and hopefully seal some deals so we can make a couple of wonderful pop-ups during this wonderful, beautiful upcoming summer for Are We On Air. I will announce the cities and kiosks pop-ups that we hopefully will be able to do very soon. Anyway, this week's special guest is none other than, drumroll please, me, myself, and I. A couple of years back, when I had my first encounter with radio, was when I was invited by Tyler Brûlé of Monocle magazine to not only visit but also talk on Monocle radio. And well, it's been a while, and fast forward to many radio sessions with my friends at Double App Radio and 2 years of podcasting that I got invited back to Monocle to talk about, well, myself and Are We On Air and sound design. But before we get into it, and I'll let you go and listen to this wonderful interview, let's talk about this week's highlights in terms of record releases. Well, we gotta talk about Kendrick Lamar. I'm sure you've seen and heard his latest album drop, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and I have to say it's a masterpiece. And it just shows you that good things just take time, as I believe it's been 4 or 5 years since his last album, Damn, which was also damn good. And I gotta say, one of the more beautiful surprises on that record has gotta be the feature with Portishead's Beth Gibbons. I just love it. But also here a little shout out to Kendrick, and this is just pure manifestation as well, as we're hoping to get Kendrick onto Are We On Air.
I'm sensitive, I feel everything, I feel everybody. One man standing on 2 words, heal everybody. Transformation, then reciprocation, karma must return. Heal myself, secrets that I hide, buried in these words. Death threats, ego must die, but I let it purge, pacify. Broken pieces of me, it was all a blur. Mother cried, put their hands on her, it was family ties, I heard it all. I should've grabbed a gun, but I was only 5, I still feel it, weighing on my heart. My first tough decision, in the shadows, clinging to my soul as my only critic. Where's my faith? Told you I was Christian, but just not today. I transformed, praying to the trees. God is taking shape. My mother's mother followed me for years in her afterlife, staring at me on back of some buses. I wake up at night, loved her dearly, traded in my tears for a Range Rover. Transformation, you ain't felt grief till you felt it sober.
Wish you was somebody, anybody but myself. I wish I was somebody, anybody but myself.
I remember looking in the mirror, knowing I was gifted, only child, me for 7 years, everything for Christmas, family ties. They accused my cousin, did he touch you, Kendrick? Never lied, but no one believed me when I said he didn't. Frozen moments, still holding on it, hard to trust myself. I started rhyming, coping mechanisms to lift up myself. Talked to my lawyer, told me not to be so hard on myself. He has an aura I hope to achieve. If I find some help, congratulations, made it to be famous. Still I feel uneasy, water watching, live my life in nature. Only thing believes me. Spirit God, whisper in my ear, tell me that she sees me. Did he touch you? I said no again. Still they didn't believe me. Mother's brother said he got revenge for my mother's face. Black and blue, the image of my queen that I can't erase. Till this day, can't look her in the eyes. Pain is taking over. Blame myself. You never felt guilt till you felt it sober.
Wish I was somebody, anybody but myself. I wish I was somebody, anybody but myself.
Another wonderful, fantastic album release was with one of our former guests, the super sweet and amazing DJ and talented rising star of the electronic scene, Perel, as she just dropped her new album, second album, on Compact Records. Here, a little shout out to our friends in Cologne at Compact. And the album is called Jesus Was an Alien. And I've got to say, it's a very good and strong album, and I love it. Let's play definitely a track of this. Why don't we play Real?
War die Welt schon immer so düster? Oder ist es nur ein grauer Star? Vielleicht erwach ich morgen aus einem tiefen Schlaf. Dann ist alles gar nicht real.
Well, let's get right into it and let's listen to my beautiful interview with Monocle Radio. And I'll speak to you soon.
And now to the world of music. I had the pleasure to welcome in our studio music curator Arman'S. He was the man responsible for the music in André Balázs hotels such as Chateau Marmont and Chilton Firehouse, so you know he can create the best of the playlists. Now he's the host of a podcast called Are We On Air, with a selection of incredible guests ranging from Dua Lipa to the Queen Amanda Lear. In the podcast, they go through someone's life soundtrack, a must listen. Here is Arman with more. So first of all, thank you for having me back. I think the last time I was here was in 2015, so it's been a while. And Are We On Air, I launched, I think exactly 2 years ago, April, was it 2020? Yeah. When the pandemics happened, I released the first episode. The idea came a year before that. And it's basically out of my role. I was the music director for André Balázs for 10 years, and my main base is in Los Angeles. I was at the Chateau Marmont as the music director, or directeur d'ambiance, as I call it. And, over the years, working and DJing and doing what I do, I met a lot of great people and interesting people from all kinds of fields in the cultural world, being in music and art and fashion and design. And obviously the main topic when people speak to me or when I speak to them somehow always goes back to music. And I was like, why don't I just, record these conversations? Because I have this beautiful access and these beautiful, intimate, very laissez-faire kind of conversations, very laid back. I'm not a journalist. It's more like an artist-to-artist conversation. And that's where the idea started. And my first interview was literally Patti Smith, which which kind of put the level up there. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to follow up with that one. But no, my first 4 interviews, she was in the lobby at the Chateau when we were introduced, and I was like, just asked her, would you be up for it? And she was so sweet and cool about it. And we did it the same evening. She gave me a call. Hey, you want to do it now? I'm like, yeah. So that's how it started. And the first 4 interviews I already had
I already had them recorded. The other one was Julian Schnabel, which I did in his house at Palazzo Ciuppi in New York. Then my Belgian brothers, Too Many DJs, who had a big influence on me sonically speaking when I was growing up in Cologne. And Gia Coppola, young, cool, new Hollywood. So that was a beautiful mix, which for me was a great representation of what Are We On Air is or could be. And then when the pandemic happened, I thought, okay, now it's time to release it. There's nothing else to do. And I've been going pretty much weekly-ish since. Yeah.
Do you feel that, for example, in a podcast like yours, I mean, you have all those big names. I think for Dan, it must be quite refreshing to talk for so long and so openly about music, right? Because you hear so many interviews, they want to ask, what's your views on abortion rights or what Biden said, which is, fair enough.
Absolutely.
But I think in this context, I think they feel quite comfortable. And perhaps that's why big names like Patti Smith is there or Amanda Lear as well, which
we'll get to,
one of our favorites here, right?
When I started singing, everybody knows the story. David Bowie fell in love.
Are you tired of talking about these subjects?
Oh yeah, no problem. But I mean, it is true that nobody believed that I could sing. I was a fashion model. Till when you're a fashion model, the one thing that the people say is shut up. Shut up and smile, shut up and be beautiful, but don't talk. And when I met David Bowie, he said, but this is ridiculous because the one thing that makes you different from all the other girls is that you have a voice, which is interesting. So you should use it. I say, yeah, but I'm a fashion model, I pose for photographs and fashion shows. He said, no, you must sing. And he was the very first person who believed that I could do something singing. So he paid for my singing class. He sent me to a woman in London called Florence Norberg. She was very tough. She made me go,
I think the general feedback that I get from our listeners as well is it's so great to see or hear these kind of people in a slightly different context and also open up more on a more personal way. Like see a side of them that you wouldn't read in a magazine or would see in a TV interview. But mainly it's not because I'm not gotcha TV basically, right? So it's really more like an artist and friendly conversation. And music is a heart opener. We all have emotional memories and connections to music. I believe everybody has a soundtrack to their life. And actually, one of my guests in season 1 was Chris Blackwell, the founder of Island Records, who, pretty much also discovered Bob Marley and so forth. And he's also now in his, I guess, late 80s. And our friend who connected us, when he listened to his episode, he was saying to him, after all these years, this was the most personal interview he has ever given, and it got him teary-eyed, And I was like, wow, It's because when you talk about like even someone at his level, when he talks about, I guess, growing up and his father, and hearing the episode afterwards with the music, I always say music or a sound is just like a scent. It can take you straight to a moment, to a place, to a person, and it's a visceral experience.
And I remember, I think, your Dua Lipa interview as well, which was, I mean, for me it was quite special because I think she released her album very close to the pandemic as well, and it was quite a disco and upbeat album. It did help me quite a lot, actually, that album. So that was an excellent interview. It was right around that time as well that you spoke to her about the release.
Actually, I just saw Dua in Los Angeles again. She just did a big arena tour in the US. And she actually said also when she had a moment to talk to her fans, I know you guys... the general feedback to her album was you helped me through the pandemic. Because we met in Los Angeles through her then management, who were friends of mine. And I actually gave her a tour because I was working on building this little private club at the Chateau with Andre. And I gave her a tour. It was like, let's do a record release here. And it was the space is very disco themed. And then she was like, this would be perfect because her album that she's about to release is very disco infused. I was like, perfect, And that's how it started. And then, and she was back then already big, but still somehow an up and coming pop star. And we were trying to set an interview since that day, basically. And it took probably a year. But in that year, she just blossomed into this like mega star. I mean, she's the biggest pop star in the world, or one of them right now. And the timing was perfect. I couldn't have planned it better. And she's very smart. She's super sweet, and we had a lot of fun. Yeah. I heard this new term which I fell in love with radical optimism.
Whoa, I love that.
I know.
Radical optimism.
Optimism.
That's exactly what we need in the world, is radical optimism. I love that.
Exactly. It's my slogan for 2021.
Wow,
Radical optimism.
I'll be fucking taking that one.
It's a new title.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a great thing to embrace.
Totally. So just waving that flag of optimism. And I love your record. I have to say, it's fun. You can, I when I saw it and I heard it, I was like, let's go dance. Like that's what you want.
Yes.
Great. And I love the club.
Thank you so much.
The club remixes.
Future Nostalgia remix. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Moody Man, sick.
A lot of people are also, well, I am at least now, I'm interested about your music taste. I mean, of course, you were in charge of music, as you say, from Chateau Marmont to Chewton Firehouse and among other places. Do you change a lot your music taste, or do you have kind of favorites from your childhood, from your memory, or you feel you're still very much an open person?
Definitely an open person, but of course I have my personal preferences, right? We all have our DNA in a way, but my knowledge, just because I've been DJing since I'm 15, and I was always, everything has to be eclectic in my world, at least. I like to maybe not know so much in depth about the individual, but I like to have an overview in anything I do. And that also goes with music. And I think just my interest in that kind of set me up to be able to consult a lot of brands and places and spaces to kind of, look at the bigger picture. And I always say when I start a project, I was like, who are you, sonically speaking? Brands spend a lot of time and money on the visual DNA, but not so much on the sonic DNA, which is, I think, a very important and big part of any marketing mix.
I think especially even in the hospitality sector or in a store, it can make it or break, because if the music is bad or you don't feel comfortable, it will make you leave the space almost in a way, right? Tell us about some of the bands you've been listening, or something. I mean, kind of a musical touch to our listeners.
I mean,
here.
My personal preference. I mean, what I listen to a lot at home and myself, of course, I'm a big disco person, but a lot of world music. I'm Persian German. So growing up, this duality in me has always kept me open to all these different worlds and genres, and I'm very intrigued by it. And I love that global pop is now such a big thing in the world, and I think technology and social media plays a big role. How you hear a certain sound that just gets translated into different languages. I mean, like Afrobeat being a big popular thing right now, a certain rhythm and melody behind that. But I love classical. I come from a very classical household, operas a lot. And of course, my little Habibi side. I love Persian music as well. And I love that these compilations are happening and popping up, like Habibi Funk and so forth. It's cool. And there's some great record stores and labels here in London. I love coming back and just to dig a little bit deeper. I'm a big fan of Sound of the Universe. And so
I love it.
Yeah, and incredible music you can dig in there. And I love diving into different cultures sonically. And
that's why we need shops like that and people like you as well to guide, because sometimes even if you're on Spotify online, there is a little bit too much. And it can get lost. At least in a shop, you see the cover, you have a more tactile experience. I mean, it's not just being nostalgic, it is the reality, right?
One of my recent interviews was with Pedro Winter, Busy P, founder of Ed Banger Records, and who discovered Justice and worked with Daft Punk and so forth. One quote from his interview, and I love that, is music is not something you swipe. And we live in a society right now where we became a streaming society. And it's, in a way, it's great, right? It's not genre defined anymore, who you are. Like, I remember living even 20 years ago here in London, either you were into indie or electroclash, or, you very specific and you looked like it. Whereas now, let's use Billie Eilish as an example. There's so many different influences. You can see punk, you see emo, you see hip hop, and electronic. It's all infused and mixed. It's because technology, you're able to pick and choose whatever you want. It's whatever in your Discovery Weekly you like. So you don't even listen to albums anymore. So I think that is the new way of listening to things. And but also the curatorial part going back to a record store or someone like me, is important. Because you have access to everything 24/7, it can be overwhelming. And it's an algorithm in the end of the day that defines what you're listening to. And I think recently even Spotify did some change where your Discover Weekly is basically being shown to millions of other people who listen to something similar. So it's not even that unique anymore to you. So I think that's where I love going to good record stores and have a conversation with the person behind the counter, because they spend the day in and out going through records, knowing what they're selling. So it's a very good source to speak with them, to dig deeper.
I agree. I think we should all do that a bit more. So tell us about some of your other projects, about some of the brands you're working at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some great clients for a long time. We mentioned, of course, Andre Balaz. I worked for him pretty much exclusively for the past 10 years. But I've worked with a lot of brands. Moncler is one of my clients I work with, for instance, for all their retail. Like, it's great to have someone on that level like Remo Ruffini actually taking his time to sit in the space and listen to each track before signing off. That, for me, is a great sign of someone paying attention to this. Because it is so vital. Even if it's just background-ish, it says so much about your brand and the experience and what you're trying to sell, or how you want to be subconsciously kind of experienced as, you know. And yeah, it's a make or break. But other brands, I recently started to work with Scott Malkin, a big developer, owns the Bista collection, big retail, luxury retail around the world. So that's very exciting to apply this kind of experience and knowledge on such a big scale. I mean, we're talking about the UBS Arena in New York, all the way to Bista Village here outside of London. So yeah, it's being in hospitality or hotels or retail, and it doesn't matter what scale. Everybody wants to feel comfortable in a space and feel good about themselves. And my goal is, how can I achieve that with the brand DNA, you know?
Are there any big no-nos when you come as being a music director? I mean, I know you're super open, we're talking about it, but is there anything that doesn't really work for in that context?
You know, music is very subjective.
Yes.
I always use this example. This is when I was still living in New York. There was like some Swedish restaurant cafe, and we were slightly hangover on a Sunday morning, going in there to get some Swedish pancakes or something. And they were blasting. This is like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. out of like a kind of shitty little stereo, like Backstreet Boys. And I'm like, why? For who? You know, has nothing to do with your Swedish DNA. It's 10 a.m. on a Sunday, and it's nothing against the Backstreet Boys, but it's so out of place, and it completely destroys the experience that you went for. And I think it's important that it's not just some, you know, the floor manager plugging in his favorite music. Again, it's not genre defined. I was just like, another project I was just working on recently was the Le Surenuse in Positano. And I was like, what are we trying to achieve here? What's the goal, right? And you have such a cinematic view. It's like the ultimate Dolce Vita look. I was like, let's play with that without being cheesy, though. And let's not do the obvious stuff. Let's dig into the Italian masters like Morricone and so forth. And it's a movie here. It's a mise en scène. Let me be the music director to the movie scene. So you kind of have to play with what you've given. I think that's really important, and to really pay attention to that. What are the visuals that I'm to work with? What's the audience? Or who am I trying to get into my space? You know, who I'm actually trying to kind of push out, you know, who I don't want in here. I think those are valid questions to ask. We actually did a kiosk recently in Berlin, a pop-up. You know, it's like either you're like have a bakery or a little retail shop or being a news agent. I think it all comes down how you want to be perceived as. Because sonic, just like a scent, is like immediate. Before you even read something or sit down or try something on or eat something, you step into that space and already you get an idea. It's a first impression and it's a first touch point. So I think it's important. What do you do with it?
No, it's very interesting because even, for example, selecting music here for Monaco 24, I don't know, I think the biggest test when you close your eyes, can you hold a nice cocktail and just feel good about yourself? I think that's kind of the... Do you know what I mean? The music can be good, but sometimes it might not work in this context, right?
Absolutely. I think... also, we have to say slightly more technical things. I think the pace and the volume plays a big role as well. That's why also Are We On Air? It's a soundtrack to your life, right? And our soundtracks change throughout our lives, just like the way our lives change. But I think in every, like, even the pace of a day changes. So I think I always use music as it should be like a shadow to you. So wherever you go, it goes with you. It's not here to follow. It's not here to drive. Your shadow doesn't tell you where to go. You tell your shadow where to go. And I think that's a great way to visualize how, sonically speaking, how it should progress throughout the day, throughout the space. Mornings are different to lunches and evenings and so forth. However, there are also, of course, cases where music is the driver. We're talking about clubs, we're talking about concerts, and that is great. And that's the nucleus of energy, which should feed out everywhere else, you know.
Thank you very much, Arman. And for more, just go to areweonair.com.